Hello and welcome to the Shy Life podcast. My name's Shy Yeti and I always listen to the Shy Life podcast. I have to. I edit it and record it. I have to listen to this thing. Oh my god, it's driving me crazy! Hello and welcome to the Shy Life podcast. This episode we got a very special guest. Who could it be?
This is Tuppy Smellie reporting from Pickle Hollow, the heart of the Finger Lakes region of New York State. Hi, how are you? Come on in. Oh, have a seat. Let me move this stuff over for you so you don't sit on it. Always glad that you stopped by for a visit.
Yes, as you can tell from the clip, it's Tuppy Smellie from the Smellcast, and that was a show from a month or two ago, episode 414, 415. I was interviewed by Tuppy, and the good thing about podcasts is that, of course, they're still available, and they never go away. Well, usually they don't, providing the host of your podcast doesn't go crazy and drop all your episodes because they're stupid. But anyway, yes. So you can go and check those episodes out. But of course, once I started doing my own podcast, I wanted to get Tuppy on this show. So he's coming up. Yes. After the music, we've got Tuppy Smellie on the Shy Life podcast. Woohoo!
Hello?
Hello, may I speak to Paul, please?
Hello. Are you the man from, the Mr. Toppy? Oh, yes. He told me to say, this is Yeti Uncle John, by the way. I'm acting as his assistant tonight.
I've heard you on on Paul's podcast. Yeah, you're Uncle John.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that's right. He's in the bath. That's what he told me to say.
I see. Well, I mean, this is a fast. And now I didn't realize that you lived there.
Well, I've come in specially because he knew that you were going to be calling, and he wanted to look his best to have you here. That's right.
Oh, I see. Well, this is an honor to talk to you. Now, on whose is it? Paul's mother's side or father's side? How are you related?
To be honest, we're not too sure. We've never been that certain quite how I'm related, but we definitely are. It's the Yeti side. I think it's the third side of the family, the Yeti side.
I see. Well, I do have a couple questions about that.
Oh, yes, please.
Well, I mean, okay, the Yeti business. Now, I know Paul has sort of like, I don't know, I think the cool kids call it a handle, Paul has a handle, and he calls himself the Shy Yeti. But I'm somewhat. Well, let me just ask you, how tall are you?
Well, that can change depending on if I've got my high heels on. But I'm at least. Sometimes I'm 7 foot in the morning, but sometimes at night I've gone down to near 6 foot. It's very odd, really.
Oh, well, that sounds like spinal compression. Well, how big? Let's, I don't need to get personal, but would you mind telling me your shoe size?
One, two, so I'm just measuring. 75. 112.
Wait a minute. I've never. No, that must be in English. That must be in centimeters, or I don't know, the metric system or something. Because that seems awfully strange.
It does change. It's changeable. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. Are you? Well, okay. Let me put it this way. Do you have to? Do you have to shave your back hair?
Oh, oh no, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, well, I wouldn't do that. I mean, I could do, but I don't. Why would you do that?
I'm just curious. Where do you like to vacation, John? May I call you John?
Yes, yeah, of course. Well, there's a place called the Isle of Wight. It's just off the coast of England. It's near a place called Southampton. It's where the Yeti come from. It's just a little pretty like seaside resort. Yeah, it's very nice.
Oh, I see. And by Yeti, you mean the Yeti family that Paul's related to.
They're the Yeti people. Yes.
Oh, the Yeti people, huh? John, are you wearing any clothes right now? Are you wearing any clothes?
Is this one of these funny calls that I've heard so much? Yes, of course I am. I'm wearing a lovely, it's a sequined nightgown.
Oh, well, all right. Well, thank goodness. For just a moment there, I thought perhaps I was speaking to, well, a Yeti, like an abominable snowman or something.
Nothing abominable about me. Well, they are related. I was going to ask you a question. May I ask you a question? I think Paul's nearly ready now. So, can I ask you a question? Why do they say you with like with Paul? Like, you're his creative placemat? Is that right?
A placemat? Me?
Yeah. Or is it soulmate or placemat? I don't know. One or the other.
Yeah. Soulmates. That's how we. Yeah, soulmate.
You're both very creative and things. That's nice, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have a soulmate. I never would have thought I'd find him overseas, but now it's wonderful.
I think he's coming now, so I better let him come and speak. And it's nice speaking to you, Mr. Smellie. Mr. Poppy.
It's nice getting it, and Jet, watch out for those ingrown toenails.
Yeah. Okay. I'll speak to you again. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was odd. I don't know.
He's a little bit awkward on the phone, isn't he? Sorry about that, Toppy. I got all the timings wrong. And did Yeti Uncle John speak to you? Okay.
Oh yeah. First of all, hi Paul. It's
sorry.
No, it's fine, and it's well. I called. I wasn't. I thought maybe your boyfriend or your roommate would answer. And then I wasn't sure who this was. And it was your uncle, which was odd.
He's a bit shy. Well, I'm shy, Yeti, but he is shy as well. I think it runs in the family.
Yeah, I was trying to pinpoint him down on, well, I don't, maybe we shouldn't talk about that. But no, it was very nice talking to your uncle.
He didn't tell you about the time I wet the bed, did he?
No.
That wasn't even me. That was my brother.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure, it was probably your brother. I've noted. No, he didn't mention that, but I do, several times on the podcast, of course, that's gotten out. You should watch that. My advice is, Paul, edit those things out.
Yes, that's a good point. As a new podcaster, I'm still kind of getting used to these things. Oh dear. So I put out at the time we're speaking, I finished another episode last night. So
I saw that.
That's been 2 episodes in 1 week. But I think some episodes, you must know this. Some episodes are easier to to edit than others, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. And also, well, that's kind of the nifty things about podcasts is, look, these things aren't on a network or release them any damn time you want to,
Yeah.
whether they're a day apart or a week apart or a month
Yeah.
apart. So there's like, we don't have to maintain strict schedules.
But the good thing is they're always there as well. Well, as long as people don't muck around with them, they should stay there as well, shouldn't they?
Yeah, actually, I think podcasts started the whole listening on demand thing. Let me think about that. Is what I said really true? I think it might be, because now everything's about watching on demand, listening on demand. But I think podcasts were the first things that came around where, yeah, you listened to them any damn time you wanted to.
The only thing is, you sometimes, when you go back, and I've listened to quite a few different podcasts particularly on 548, that and you kind of get involved in the stories, and you suddenly think, oh no, so the poor person, or whatever, or you're thinking, or you're very happy because something good's happened, and you think, actually, that was 5 years ago.
That's true. Yeah, you got to be aware of like when it was recorded. Isn't that funny? I just, for the first time, decided to go back and listen to the first episode of a podcast I've listened to for forever. And I got it in my head that I'm curious. First of all, can I find it? And I did. And I listened to the first episode, and it was quite unlike, what came much later, because that's the way things go. But it was interesting listening to him talk about the things that were important to him, 10 years ago, because that's how old this was. And I thought, wow, this guy's life has changed so much because he recorded this 10 years ago. And it was just interesting listening to him talk about stuff that was important to him then. It was odd.
Particularly when it's real stuff, because obviously if I go back and watch an episode of Sutton Park from 20 years ago, then I'm acting. There might be bits of real life that come into it, but it's not the same as somebody sitting there putting it on the line about what they really think about something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I suppose I really ought to sort of do a grand. I'll do a grand introduction. I'm just going to.
All right. Yep. Yep.
And then this week on the Shy Life podcast, we've got a very special guest. It's Toppy Smellie from the Smellcast. Toppy, welcome to the Shy Life podcast.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
But you're my first. Well, other than my mum, you're my first Skype guest, and you're certainly the first guest from across the world.
Well, as well I should be.
Of course, exactly.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I've been listening right along since the first one, and I'm looking forward to.
You're probably the main person who inspired me to start doing it after we talked back in the spring.
Well, that's nice to hear. I'm tickled that I've could inspire anybody to do this fun little hobby. But I think it's awesome.
I think I sort of decided very quickly that I was going to do it when I did start. I didn't sort of think about it for a long time. I just sort of decided one day I think I'm going to do this, and then suddenly I did.
Well, what's funny is you sort of snuck it on us.
Yeah.
In another word, you didn't breathe a word of it, because I interviewed you on the Smellcast, and you didn't say nothing about it.
I wasn't even thinking about it then.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, that's how suddenly it was.
That was sudden then. Well, I think the way you did it is that's in my opinion the right way to do it. You jump in with both feet. Because if you get fussy at the start and you start thinking, well, that's not quite right, I should do it this way. Well, that's not quite right. Well, before you know it, you've done 10 versions of it, and then you're tired, and it's like, no, jump in with both feet. That's what you did. I admire that. That was great.
Well, once I got enthusiastic, because I thought, right, I'm going to collect interviews over the summer, and then I'll put an episode. Then maybe when it comes to the September or so, I'll have 2 or 3 episodes ready to go. And then, of course, I did the first episode. And I thought, oh, well, actually, I can do a pilot. Let me do a pilot episode. And then I didn't know. Then I suddenly because I enjoyed doing that. I was, well, let's try episode 1, and suddenly I know I just released episode 9.
Yeah, it's been in pretty quick succession. So you've been doing great.
And also suddenly in the last few weeks I've been recording 2, 3, 4 interviews a week. So some of them will be on their own, and some of them will be maybe 2 interviews in an episode. And so I'm making use of when people are sort of saying if they'll do it.
Yeah, and you've been very playful with the format, and lots of little surprises here, and I like it when some of your characters come up, and so I just like the way you have been. I can tell that you are having fun with it. I can tell that.
I sort of did some similar things when I did my poetry videos, but I even went, sort of wore silly glasses or played characters then. So it's not. So I suppose I really kind of kept to that formula, but obviously it's not just about me now. It's about my guests as well, and it's that was sort of, I wouldn't say that's a trial, but it was I was able to sort of go back to that to a certain extent.
And I also like just a little. I actually really love the reminiscing about your music collection and just, going through, this, I remember this, and I, blah, blah, blah. Even that's just very, very nice.
I'm planning on doing an episode of that with somebody where I'm actually going to do it. I'm actually going to interview somebody, but I'm also going to do that segment with one of my guests who I know is very into 80s music, and I'm going to sort of try and find my weirdest ones and see what his reactions are on that one. So, so Toppy, I wanted to try and cover some areas that we hadn't covered. I know people haven't. They should listen to the Smellcast, and I've been telling them they should listen. If they haven't listened to the interview, then they should do, and they should also listen to your other episodes. But I want to try and cover some areas we didn't cover in that. But, can you tell me a bit about your early creative days? I know you did comic books and radio and films. What sort of did you have names for all of these things? And
yeah, boy, you make it sound so much better than it really was. But sure, the earliest things I did was I wanted to copy the comic strips that were in the Sunday newspaper, the color comic strips, and I would just study them and look over each panel, and I just spread it out on the floor, and I don't know for how long. Every Sunday I'd just look at them, and I could read, and so I read them, except Mary Worth and like Prince Valiant. Those were harder to read. A Little Orphan Annie, it was like those were a lot of words to read, but I did my best, and mainly I just was somehow fascinated by these drawings, and so I'd copy them, and that was the start of it. And not long afterwards, I drew up. I even remember what it was. It was a story about a genie. This guy had found a lamp, and he rubs it, and out pops a genie, and the genie says, "Well, you freed me, and I'll grant you 3 wishes." And so, what's your first wish? And the guy says, I'd like some money. And poof, there's stacks of bills. And the genie says, and your second wish? And the guy thinks, and he says, you know what? I want more money. And the genie says, well, all right. Poof, there's stacks and stacks and stacks of more money. And the genie says, this is your final wish, your last wish. Well, what can I grant you? And the guy thinks for a minute and says, I'd like even more money. And the genie is like, oh my God, this is the most. But he does it, and then he's so bored, and I can't even stand this. He goes back into the bottle, and that was the end. So, and then I just kept drawing, and eventually, instead of copying other things that I'd found, I started creating my own characters, and it just went off from there. But I must have, I never stopped. I kept drawing the comic books.
I know you mean about you get to that point where you because I used to do stories for like Doctor Who stories, and even in the late 80s when I started to get involved with fandom, I even wrote stories that got into little fanzines, and but really I kind of wanted to do my own characters. And I mean, not to say that if somebody from Doctor Who said, "Oh, come and write an episode of Doctor Who," which they were never going to do, I wouldn't say, "Oh no, I can't. It's not my own characters." But you do kind of, if you know you've got the chance to. It's nice to do your own, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a natural progression for creative people. Is first you are excited by something and you want to emulate it, and for a while that's great. Hell, I was drawing Spider-Man comic books, and he was my favorite character. I graduated from the comic strips in the newspaper to discovering comic books. And Spider-Man became my favorite. So that's all I drew for a long time was Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. But eventually I created my own superhero, and then I created another and another and another. And after a while, I wasn't copying other people. I was doing my own original stuff. Now, I was just a young kid, so, it was all pretty insipid, but who cares? It's just, that's the natural progression, I think, of creativity is you get that urge, well, I've got something I want to put out there, and after a while, copying isn't enough. You want to do something original.
You've reminded me, actually, that there was a stage when I was doing Sutton Park. One of my main contributors was a guy called Lee, who I've lost touch with, unfortunately. But he was really good, and he could do the drawing, and he could make the props. He could, like in the old days where you sort of see like dynamite or gelignite, sort of. So he would sort of like get red candles and put sparklers on the top. So we'd have things like that in Sutton Park where the baddie, he played one of the baddies as well. He would do all sorts of sort of props and things as well as acting, and he was one of the main people who would come up with ideas other than me. Whereas sometimes when we were doing Sutton Park, I would mainly say, okay, today I want us to kind of ad lib around this subject. Lee would be the other way around. You go to Lee's and you didn't know what you were going to be filming because he'd worked it out, which was really nice for me not to quite know what I was going to be doing.
Huh.
But at one stage we were going to do a spoof. This was going to be in print. This might have even been before Sutton Park. We were going to do a spoof sort of superhero based on our own characters. And I remember that it didn't get that far. I think he did some drawings, but it didn't get that far. But because my name Chandler is all to do with ships and candles and supplies for ships, the main character was called Candleman. And I can't remember what my power was supposed to be.
Oh, think about it just for a second. It must have had flame or light, or it had to have been flame.
Yeah, I mean, I remember he did all the drawings, and I one of the things that I don't remember how far we got with actually writing it, but thinking about superheroes, that's the first time I've thought about Candleman in years.
Candleman. One of my creations, Paul. Get this. Hot water bottle man. I swear to God, I think I drew about, well over 40 issues of that.
So what was it? Did he like get into people's beds and make them warm?
Well, the original concept was quite primitive, but eventually, as I grew older and had a more mature sense of humor, Hot Water Bottle Man would, instead of like fighting crime, he really brought comfort to the victims. So he had a cape, and he would wrap people in the cape and then give them the hot water bottle, and suggest that they suck their thumb or something like that. So he was more of a bringer of comfort, but he would also solve the crime. Often the bad guy would get hit in the face by a thrown hot water bottle, which is, quite a deadly weapon, really. And so that was how it ended up being. But at first, it was, more.
What sort of age? What did you draw right up until like recently, or was it what sort of era was the cartoons that we've been speaking about?
Yeah, so this was all pretty early on, and then I kept drawing them, various ones. I had like three sets of characters, I guess, that I would do like 12 issues, and I tried to keep a monthly deadline, so they'd come out once a month. And I did it all the way up, but it all ended when I graduated from high school. That's when it all ended, because it was like, oh, it's time for real life, and I've got to go to college, and there's no time for this silly stuff anymore.
I suppose, thinking about myself, I was I was doing writing, but when I went to university, that's when I sort of morphed into doing the filming. So I suppose because you're doing writing for work, well, sort of like for coursework and things, I was thinking, well, I want to do something that gets me out and does. And of course, I had got my camera. I didn't realise when I started Sutton Park that it was going to be quite such a major thing.
Yeah, I guess 3,000 and what?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number. It's 3,100 and something or other. I found what might be the last episode the other day, but I might find another tape where I did a bit more afterwards. I'm not because we're only just starting to digitize it. That it's I'm finding things that I've totally forgotten about. So.
Oh, I imagine. Because
I never edited I only really edited the first 1,000 episodes, and then everything else was just recording to be edited eventually. So
right.
Not that there was ever that much editing involved, except for putting music on. I didn't really chop things out. We didn't tend to sort of make fluff. When you're ad-libbing, you just work the fluffs into the events.
I think that today with YouTube, I just want to encourage you to. I mean, God knows it must take a lot of time. But I just want to encourage you just to get that stuff and digitize it.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, jeepers, it must, gee whiz. I mean, I can't imagine to do the whole thing, but you can't think like that. You just got to start and do it when you can. But I think, there's a home for stuff like that. And you can actually, have people watch this maybe for the first time on YouTube or something.
I've enjoyed putting I'm surprised how well even the audio clips. I'd like to try and get them in better quality, because at the moment I haven't kind of worked that out. But partly because I haven't got them in the right format. But there are certain bits where we're ad-libbing that even if you don't know the full story, it still is kind of funny or sounds weird, but in a good way.
Yeah. I've heard audio, just the audio that you've presented on your podcast. And actually, no, I've seen something because I can remember it. It was you were like entering a tennis court, and some dinosaur or something was there and frightened you away or something. But
I put that on Twitter the other day. I just recorded off the screen. That was a creature that I made out of a donut box and covered it with tinsel and made using ping pong balls for eyes. So you did films as well. What were they just one-off things or?
Well, let's see. I got the first of all, my parents had done home movies, and so had my grandparents. And at the time, what was used was called 8mm film, and it would come in reels. And your 8mm camera was hand cranked, So it didn't run on batteries or anything. You would crank it to wind the, I guess it was a spring. I'm not sure. It must have been a spring. You would wind the spring tight. You would somehow thread that goddamn film through the right parts of the camera, doing it in as dark a place as you could because light would spoil the film. And somehow you'd thread that thing, and if you were lucky, you'd do it right. And you'd close it up. You'd put the cover on, and then you were ready to go. But such, I mean, talk about, because the film was expensive, or it seemed expensive at the time, and it was only like 3 minutes of film. And it just seemed like it was very costly. But I bet you it was, I don't know, $3 a roll or something. And so we would occasionally have movie nights where we'd show these old home movies. And, most of it was what you would think. It's this person's birthday. Oh, look, it's Christmas. Oh, look, it's another birthday. Oh, look, it's Halloween. It was that kind of thing. But then, in the middle of one of these films, was my uncle out in the yard. And he was moving all over the yard without walking. And I said, what the, how the, who the, how the, who the, and my father said, oh yeah, I remember doing this. I put the camera on a tripod, and we animated him zigzagging all across the yard. And I said, who the, how the, what the? And so my father explained it. Well, on this camera, there's a single frame release. Anyways, that's how I learned that, oh my God, I could take that camera and make movies. My own. I don't have to record Christmas and birthday. I could actually do, so that's how it all started. And I was very, very interested in monster movies. And so before we even thought of filming, we were putting on plays, and one of them was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And we thought, well, if we're going to do a movie, let's adapt our Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to the film. So I got out the camera and we did it, and there was just the two of us. Occasionally, we'd have to ask a parent to come in and hold the camera, because if there's two people in a scene, well, somebody's got to be the cameraman. And of course, this is silent, no words. And Paul, when you would finish and you'd send the film off to the factory to get it developed, because this is what you had to do.
Yeah.
It would be like 6 freaking weeks before you'd see it. And the angst and like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this. Because you have it all in your mind, and you remember what you filmed, and you're like, oh gee, yeah, but you can't see it. It's not like video. You can't just look at it and say, oh well, we should do that over. No. You're not going to see anything you did for 6 weeks or more. So that time was like you'd run to the mailbox every day. Oh my God, is it here yet? Is it here? No, it's not. Nah. And finally, one day it would show up in the mail. And oh my God! And we'd have to wait until night, Paul, because you'd have to have a dark room. And you'd put it in the projector, you'd get out the screen, and you would finally see the results of what you did. And more often...
I didn't know I had it so good back in my day.
Oh, yeah. So, and more often than not, all that time you had spent waiting and envisioning this over and over in your mind, what you had done, well, in your mind, it was a hell of a lot better than when it really looked like. So more often than not, you'd look at it and go, oh, well, that's not the way I remember it.
Did you, was it like friends who are in it, or do you have a brother? Don't you? Was he involved or?
Actually, my brother and I didn't get involved in this. I think if we had started a little bit earlier, my brother and I might have done something like this together. But I had a friend, and that's who I put on these plays and puppet shows with. And we would make up our own plays, and we would make up our puppet shows, and we would make the puppets. And when the concept came forward that, oh, movies, we can film this, in our heads, like we were like, this was Hollywood, man. We thought, we were thinking like, okay, we got to have makeup and we have to have special effects and we'd do this and that. And it was just with a buddy of mine, and occasionally a third person would come in, and occasionally, like I said, a parent or somebody would
Yeah.
be the cameraman. But it was basically one friend and I doing this.
I think that's the whole thing you said about needing someone behind the camera was how I sort of came up with the idea in Sutton Park of like being an investigative journalist with a camera, because then I would start after a while I started turning the camera to and realised that actually it worked. The length of your arm was good enough to get a good sort of
Yes. And that was, an intelligent way to solve that problem. And by the way, folks, Paul Chandler, creator of the selfie.
I'm sure I didn't, but when I think a few years ago there was like, I don't know, a pop star, I don't know if it was Rihanna or something like that, somebody was doing selfies and almost as good as was inferring that they invented them, and I was thinking I was doing that back 20 years ago and I'm sure I wasn't the first person.
Yeah. No, but that was a perfect solution for, that problem.
When we used to do filming, other than all of the like friends and stuff who appeared in Sutton Park, and the other things I did, my brother's probably the nearest we have to a child. Well, he definitely was the child actor of Sutton Park, because my brother's 8.5 years younger than me. So when we started doing Sutton Park, he was about 9, and then when we finished, he would have been like getting on for 18 or something. So there's a really big difference, really big change in him over the course of the show. But he was. It kind of brought us a bit closer in a way, and I did put him through some things. I did make him. I made him dress up as a woman once and be a bit and scream like he. I wanted to do a thing where a character was seen to be killed off, so he just did just a random victim. So I stuck him in a wig and he went, but he was quite. I think he might have even borrowed one of my mum's dresses, and we didn't tell her or anything. I think she just wandered in and found my brother screaming in the kitchen, dressed in a wig and one of her.
Oh gosh, that's so much fun. I love that.
Before we go on, I like what you mentioned also doing radio, like an early version of Pickle Holiday. What was that something you did for many episodes or some episodes?
Oh, I did that for years. Yeah, so let's see. Why did I do that? Well, first of all, there was the CBS Radio Mystery Theater that was playing in the United States.
I've heard you talk about that.
Yeah, and it was a revival of old radio plays. I think they did 3 years of it, and I listened, and they would come on weeknights, like 5 times a week. And I loved it. I just loved it. And then, I started to learn about radio. And of course, I'd heard stories from my father and my grandparents about what radio was like, and before television. And this fascinated me. And I think I may have gotten a Panasonic cassette recorder, or maybe I asked for one because I wanted to do these radio things. But in any case, the thing that was great about it was that, like video, you could record and then play it back and instantly know what you had. So that was very different from the film, those 8mm movies. I knew instantly what I had, and I could either keep it or reject it. And I just, I really just tried to imitate what I had heard on radio, on the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. I always had it on a comedic bent, but I would, it would be comedy mystery or comedy spooky, or it was always comedy mixed with adventure or horror or something. And I had 2 cassette players, and one I would record on, the other I would press play to either have a sound effect or music. And you couldn't edit it per se. You had to do all the editing right there.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't snip it apart and then rebuild it. You pretty much had to edit it as you go. But I would do like 7-part stories of this, that, or the other thing, and I would have to do all the voices and the sound effects and the music, and it was just something I did I started in junior high school, and I think, again, I was still doing them a little less frequently in high school. And again, once I graduated from high school, that stopped. I just, there wasn't any place for that, any time for it, so that just all sort of stopped.
For each 7-part story, was it the same characters each story, or was it totally different cast each story?
I did have characters that I called him Don Damon, the Double Man. He was a detective, and on nights where there was a full moon, he would gain the strength of 2 men. Don't ask me. But anyways, that's why he was called Don Damon, the Double Man. And he, so he was very strong, and he would get in adventures. And I must have done, I don't know, a dozen 7-part stories of this guy, and he had a complete cast of characters. And the women, Paul, they all sounded just like this. Yeah, that was my woman's voice. And every woman character sounded just like this. Yep.
Yeah, like Monty Python movie. I always love there was the episode you did of Lutzwell recently where you used your Monty Python clips where they're doing the women's voice. I love the women.
That big one on the television. So yeah, I did all the voices.
I love their women.
Yeah.
I was going to say I used. Before I started filming Southern Park, I did a series called Roland Quaverall, and he was a detective. And later on, I kind of have brought him back after he was dead as a ghost in different things. And but the thing I was doing back in sort of 1990 was because it was his diaries, so I used to record them, but then we break off from the diaries with other people playing some of the other characters, and that was my sort of foray into sort of radio before the last audio thing I did before this, I suppose.
Well, the thing I liked about audio especially is that if you could create the illusion of absolutely anything, and it would help if you had a variety of sound effects, and I collected as many as I could. Some of them were professional sound effects that I would get off records. A lot of the sound effects I just do myself. But the thing I loved about it was you could tell, you could have the characters in spaceships going to Mars. You could have them underwater. You could have them on top of a mountain. If you just, all you needed was, if you're on top of a mountain, you just got to have and then there you go. You're on top of a mountain.
I know what you mean, because there's 2 things. I remember, partly what you were saying about convincing people you're somewhere else. I don't think I really realised that with Sutton Park to start with until somebody watched some episodes. It was actually a movie version that my friend Nick and I did, and somebody watched it who didn't usually watch Sutton Park, and they just presumed we didn't actually film the film in the real Sutton Park. We filmed it back home in Salisbury, but the person watching sort of didn't realise, just thought it was, because we'd said it was Sutton Park, they thought it was a bit like Dark Shadows. We were filming. We did a movie at the same time as we were doing the series. And after that point, I was kind of going, okay, if I say this bit's in France for some reason, then it's in France. It doesn't, the people are going to believe it, whatever you say.
Yeah.
And the thing you said about sound effects, if you ever go on Mr. Shayetti and see the first episode or the first couple of episodes of the reboot of Sutton Park, which I called Sutton Park SW1, I didn't have any music. I wasn't sure what I could put on there, so I did all of the music, sort of like beat. What do they call it? Beat, where you sort of like put your hand over your mouth and go. And I just made the music. I sung the theme tune, and I did all the sound effects, sort of putting my hand over my mouth and kind of as much as possible. And that was only like 2010.
Oh boy.
But I kind of quite enjoyed the fact that I think it was one of those things that when I decided to bring Sutton Park back, I literally decided, oh, right, I'm going to do that. Right, let's get going. I didn't sort of think about it. A bit like the podcast, I didn't think about it for months. I just... moving forward, decided to start doing the Smellcast. Did you know you were going to do a continuing story from the... Because I was listening back to some of the earlier episodes that you have got, and then you also put clips from really early episodes, and so I heard like you had sort of Sassy, when he first appeared, and how Aunt Tappy first appeared. That was really fascinating. But did you do that right? How soon did Pickle Hollow come into Smellcast? Was that always going to happen?
No, it wasn't always going to happen. It developed gradually. I originally thought that probably the Smellcast would be essentially a personal journal, and for anybody who isn't quite sure what that is, that's where basically you are journaling, but you're doing it through your voice. You're not writing it down. You're journaling your life, what happened yesterday, what's going on, where your head is at, blah, blah, blah. And I knew right off the bat that my life wasn't all that interesting. And I said, you know what? Because I had this past of making stuff up on audio cassette tapes and doing plays, I also had, this thought that, I'll fool around with stuff like that. And so I did. And then a couple of characters, originally, he was just my best friend. He was the first one. And that was, my brain farting on his name. My best friend on the podcast.
Walt.
Walt, Jesus. Thank you, Paul. Walter Snicker. And he was in a lot of the early ones, and so I talked to Walt. What are you going to do today? Well, I don't know, Toppy. We should. I don't know. I'm just not sure. Well, Walt, we got to have some sort of plan for the show today, and so that would happen often, and I just started using sound effects more elaborately. And then before I knew it, I was telling multi-part stories, and it just sort of grew out of that. I didn't really plan it to be that, but it just sort of grew into a podcast where I sometimes would talk about my real life. But in the very same episode, Walt would walk in the door and say, Toppy, we've got to go. There's a piano floating down the street. There's been a flood. We need to run after it. Oh, okay. And then suddenly we were running after a piano floating down the street. And so it just became like that. I remember the first one is I was using audio I lifted entirely from Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. And I just wove. I just switched things up. Instead of birds attacking, it was a flock of drag queens attacking the town, and I I would play one character and I would use all the audio. I'd use Tippi Hedren and Rod Taylor, and they'd be talking, and I would be a character in there, and I totally just took the story and made it silly. And that was the first multi-part story I did because it was so long that it really couldn't fit into one episode. But that did lead to me doing more multi-part stories, and then after a while, I began to think of the Smokecast as a collision of reality with fantasy, like a personal journal podcast collides with fantasy, and I guess that's still how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, that's sort of I think I because I do that with my writing and I do that with Sutton Park anyway. That was kind of my first go-to sort of place with, like, I think even in my pilot episode I had me talking about making up stupid stories about books, and but as long as you do it with a straight face or make it sound like it's real, it hopefully gets people going, what? Just a minute ago he was talking, which bits are real here, which bits...
Well, I do like playing with that, just exactly how you described it. I like the idea that someone might actually think, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I remember one time I was moving, and I did an episode called The Move, and it was basically me just talking into the mic, well, I've moved now, and, I had to do this and move the bed in, and that was hard, and, now I'm sleeping here in my first night in the apartment, and all of a sudden someone broke into the room, and this is where the fantasy started. Yeah. It was my new next-door neighbor.
Yeah, I've heard this one recently, I think.
Dallas Cody, and I forget why he barged into the room now, but anyways, that was a totally just talking into the mic, telling my story, and suddenly someone bursts into the room, and bingo, we're in Fantasyland. So I really love playing with that, and I don't play with that as much as I like anymore. I'd sort of like to get back to that. Because now I have like firm segments where, okay, now we are doing Pickle Hollow. This is the fantasy part of the show. And I kind of miss mixing it all.
I think I'm learning what I can and can't do with the audio side. Like in the episode I just posted today, there was I wanted to do, because it was a lot of it was from a poetry show, and I wanted it to. I didn't want it to just be the poetry, although there's not just me, and there's other people and there's guests who are in the audience. I still wanted Damius and Uncle John to be there, so I didn't record their bit. I recorded their bits afterwards back at my parents' house, and obviously the sound quality is different. But then I thought, actually, I've got some sound from when I was in a pub once, and if I turn the volume down, I'll put it over the top of what I've done as Damius, and then it will sound more like it was done at the time, and it worked. But the trouble is, I was thinking that when you do things like that, people don't know how hard if it works, then they'll never realise that you did it. If you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. You must have that with some of your effects, that it sort of, people won't even appreciate how much you've put into it.
Yeah, but the thing that turns me on. I love doing that, and like, the joy for me isn't the fact that maybe I'm pulling the wool over people's eyes. It's just that it's something unexpected, but sounds real. But when they really think about it, they, quite immediately realize, okay, wait a minute, this is not This is not real. And I love that. I remember I did one. I tried my damnedest to make it sound as real as possible. I carefully selected the sound effects, and it was one where I said, "Hi," I wanted it to sound like it was just a personal journal podcast. I said, "Hey, I've got some chairs set up out back in the yard. It's night. I'm gonna take a 6-pack out. I've got a fire started. Come on out with me." And yada yada yada, and then screwy things started happening. But I the whole thing was, I wasn't really recording. It was all sound effects. But I loved the thought that just maybe I was putting somebody on for half a second, 30 seconds. That still tickles me that maybe I can do that.
I enjoyed doing, I enjoy playing these little voices. I did a little thing when I was talking to my plants, and they were complaining, and I just loved choosing the different voices for each one of the plants, and I'm sure I was far more satisfied with it than I should ever have been. But because it was one of the first things that I did like that, I kept listening to it back and thinking, "Yeah, this is funny." You shouldn't laugh at your own thing, should you?
Oh, why not? I remember that. I remember that segment.
I was thinking probably for me, doing the personal diary podcast is the harder bit of the two. I'm trying to sort of do a bit at the beginning at least where I kind of say what I've been up to, because I suppose I'm more comfortable hiding behind the silliness or getting on with the guests, talking with the guests. How do you feel about it? Are you more comfortable with that? Were you always comfortable with that?
Paul, I feel exactly the same way. It is the hardest thing to do. I've had many episodes where, I just want to sit down and talk about some serious stuff, and it's very difficult. I can't tell you how many times I have sat down to talk about some real life shit and never used it because it just was like, oh my God, this is going to depress the hell out of people or whatever. For whatever reason, I said, oh my God, I can't release this. I just, no. And I find I have a struggle with like, well, just how personal can I get here? And at times I've gotten very personal, but I've learned to sort of like, I've had to think a lot about why do people tune in? And I've come to the conclusion that not that I do not have a large audience, by the way. It's not large. They're like, for whatever reason they have kept listening, but we're not talking like a huge listenership. But I had to take into consideration, like, gee, I'm not sure people really want to hear this. And so I've had a big struggle with that, and it is the hardest thing to do. And I think I find it almost harder and harder to do. And it is easier to hide behind the comedy and the silliness. And I mean, it's been harder. It is the hardest thing. You're absolutely right.
But you've got the control on your show. It's when you go on, if you're on Lotso and the subject is something, then you're kind of having to decide how much I'm going to say. Sort of when you're with a group of people, when you haven't got although you do, I know you do the editing sometimes, but you know what I mean. That must be put you on the spot a bit more as to what you're going to say.
Yeah, that does happen. And so that's a group show I do called Life on the Shit List, or Lotzel. And yeah, that does happen where like people are talking about something rather serious, and naturally we all want to respond, and we don't want to be silly. We've got to be kind of serious at this point, and it's a little it's hard sometimes, especially when you don't expect that you're going down that road.
And I heard you do. There was a really good episode of Convention Carmel's show where you were talking about your sort of just you two talking about things you've gone through. That was I really enjoyed listening to that, even though it was a serious subject. It was
Yeah. That was like
um,
very. She Kvetch Carmel is a very personal journal, and so yeah, that was just we had our sense of humors didn't leave us, but we were talking about pretty serious things, and it helps sometimes. Like, I don't think I would have been able to say the things that I said on her show if I was trying to do them on my show. Like,
mm,
it helped having someone else there.
sometimes you have been quite. There have been some episodes I've heard where I really sort of felt for you, and of course this goes back to me thinking, actually no, this was 5 years ago, or this is 3 years ago, but it's not like you can send an email to 3 years ago and go, "Oh, I hope you're feeling okay," because that was then.
Yeah.
I'm nearly running out of time, so I thought perhaps we should lighten it at the end here. Well, so if we went back in time and we were going to do a series together, like when we were, consider it as like that sort of in the early 90s or 80s or something. What do you think if we'd have met, or if we'd lived in the same street? What do you think our series would have? Do you think it would have been a mixture of something Park with Pickle Hollow and superheroes and sci-fi and Dark Shadows all mixed in together?
I have to believe that. First of all, we would so be on the same page. I mean, we would have so been on the same page. We would have been speaking each other's language. I swear, Paul. I swear. It's like we would have made a hell. I really believe we would have made a hell of a team. And I
I,
do think it would have been like a whole mixture. We would have brought in everything: Doctor Who, Dark Shadows, old monster movies. We would have just gone crazy.
and I think it would have been because it would have been different than if we were going to do something together. Well, we can't. I suppose I kind of am with the Shy Yeti scripts, but that's with years of sort of, I've got existing characters, you've got existing characters. That's different if you come to it now, because we've both got our own histories. But if we'd have met 20, 30 years ago, then we'd have been starting fresh, and we might have gone down different roads because we wouldn't have come to it with any pre-existing sort of characters.
True.
We would have,
Yeah,
we'll never quite know until I build that time machine.
yeah. I mean, we seriously could have. I don't know. We may even have invented our own subgenre themes. Like, yeah,
We might have been like the Gene Roddenberrys of our day. We might have been living on a fortune by now.
seriously. No, like, you did a lot of the stuff in uni, and which, by the way, I love how you folks over there say uni. And uh,
I'm not sure I didn't get that from Australia, to be honest. I think when I watch Neighbours, which is one of the soap operas that I think it does better over in the UK than it does in Australia. But I think they go on about uni, so I think that might be.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Australians say uni all the time for university.
Yeah.
I went to uni. Anyways, so imagine, let's just say for what, I had somehow ended up at the same uni that you were going to, and we had met, and I mean, I would have, you would have gotten me in trouble, Paul. That's all I could see, because I would not have paid any attention to my studies. I would just want to do more videos. I would have gone crazy. It would have been, I just know that
I was kind of like, I mean, I passed and I got a 2-2, but really I should have got a 2. I would never have got a first, but I probably should have worked harder and got a 2-1. But actually, ultimately, it hasn't stopped me having a career that's continued in this, So I don't really care. I don't really care now. I'm glad I did what I did because, being a librarian was obviously what I should be, and and then do all my creative stuff in the background. But yeah, if I could get if I could get on the bus and go somewhere and do filming, then that was far more important than getting an essay finished. Although I never let it sort of, I never sort of missed a deadline or anything.
Sure, sure.
I would.
No,
Yeah, I was just skirting by my tail all the time.
now that you've said that, I have a feeling we would have been very bad for each other. we would be distracting each other from important things and going off to do silly things.
Because I wasn't the sort of person, because I lived in a small village. I didn't sort of, I wasn't focused on I must go down the pub, or I must, some teenagers are kind of, as soon as they can smoke or drink, they do. Whereas I was still more interested in my creative stuff. And because I live where I did, it wasn't really an opportunity. So when I got to university, that's when I was able to kind of go out more. I still sort of, I think there are a few episodes of Sutton Park where I'm a bit drunk because we were filming at home. And I remember doing an episode on my 20th birthday where we had one of the main early Sutton Park villains was the jelly monster, which was literally made from a jelly, and with like maybe ping pong ball eyes. But then I bought some jellies that were kind of in small pots. So we bought loads and loads of them and put them all over the bedroom or the main room where we used to be. And for my 20th birthday, we filmed an episode where the little jelly monsters invaded. I think I was probably a bit drunk in that episode because I had some wine that night.
Oh, Lordy. We would have had some good times. And I want to speak to that to close, maybe. How important it was. I know it was important for you, and it absolutely was important for me, that when I was doing these creative things, that I had connected with another friend who wanted to do them with me. And that was really important. And I just want to say to my collaborators, who are mainly Brian and Paul, that, doing these things with them, and it was a relatively short period of our lives, and, goodness, I have no clue what either of these guys are up to today. But in my head, when I think about, maybe what's really valuable about having done all that was just the friendship that I had with these guys, that we could do these nutty things. And, we were nerds, and we all enjoyed it, and for different reasons. And also, Paul was mainly my audience. He would listen to those stupid, endless radio things that I did on cassette tape. And my God, he would listen to every single one, and he would provide feedback. And I'll never forget that. He was the best audience I ever had. Not because he would just say, "Oh, Tappy, that's just so great. Oh, boy, that was another good one." No, he was critical. And but to have that one person that that you basically did all this stuff for them to hear, I just wanted to speak to that. And I'm sure for you it was similar, that there was a few people in your life that shared this with you.
I think I said on the Smellcast when we talked, there were a few cases where I kind of got people involved by sort of saying, "Oh, can you just hold this plastic dinosaur?"
Yeah.
And oh, can you just be a zombie? Can you? Oh, suddenly they were main characters. But I had my own version of your Paul. Lee, who I mentioned earlier, he was the main person who would watch the episodes, and I think when I started Sutton Park, it was probably in a break where we didn't see each other for a few months. So I'd already done a few episodes when we sort of got back in touch. So he became like the viewer before he even appeared in the show. And then having seen enough episodes, he was one of the few characters who came into it having sort of watched some episodes and then thinking, okay, I want to play this character. And in fact, later on, he also played the viewer of Sutton Park. He played a character who was like the ultimate fan of Sutton Park, who then entered the series as a character. So we were very meta. in that way.
Mm-hmm. And what's sort of fun about the way technology has brought us, you and I, first of all, you have a blog where you can post your written work.
Mm.
You have, YouTube, I guess, where some of your videos can be seen. And you have whatever podcast, however people listen to podcasts. But, it's kind of cool that we have something of an audience now, more than just our best friend.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Imagine if we'd had that back in the day.
Yeah, seriously. That would have been weird. But that's where the technology has brought us, and that we can actually do that. We can actually put our stuff out there for other people to see.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. I hate to stop things when we're having such a good chat, but we will be back. Toppy will be back for episode 16 coming up very soon. I hope you enjoyed all the stuff we've been chatting about so far. There's a lot more fun things to come. Anyway, well, do make sure you check in for our next episode of the Shy Life podcast. I can guarantee you, well, more of the same. Yes, no, that is a good thing. It really is. Okay, well, take care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.